we'd like to thank all of you for dialing in and being a part of our Navigating the Coronavirus Economy series. And one of the topics that has been coming up, I cannot make this up. I wish I did. I had a client, I'm not kidding, yesterday morning email me about an hour before our email communication went out to everyone saying that this is the webinar we're doing. I mean, literally an hour before. And she emailed me and she said, hey, I think I'm at a point where I want to sell my business. And I'm thinking about using a business broker. What should I do? I said, well, I think you should listen to our webinar on Friday. I said, I think that's a good place to start. And anyway, it's amazing how timing works out with that. Andrew, thanks for being on, by the way. And I'm sure we'll have, and Courtney, thank you for tuning in as well. And I know we'll have some other folks tune in. And if we end up with a relatively small group, Don, who is our presenter today, he's going to keep it pretty casual in my conversation with him. So we can keep it conversational as well. So he's got a prepared presentation here. But today's guest is Don Krause. He's the president of Strategic Business Brokerage, and he's been a business broker for over 10 years. And prior to that has built and run other companies and been involved in a lot of different business activities. But the last 10 years been focused on business brokerage. And as he reminded me, strategic being important, strategic entrances and strategic exits into a business or out of a business. And I've worked with Don, goodness, for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. And I told him, I said, when I said, Don, I knew I liked you, before, but I liked you even more because I saw in his back room there, he's got a White Sox poster. I'm a White Sox fan. So I always make note to call that out.
Yeah. You got to stick together.
Yeah. That's exactly
right. I have
to
log off now. Sorry, Tom. Bye. Have a great day.
Yeah. So the White Sox are my American League team. The Braves are my National League team. Now I live in the Atlanta area. So anyway, with that being said, I'd love to turn things over to Don. And Don over time has just become someone that I value his opinion. I trust his advice. He is just straightforward, direct, honest, and someone who really cares about doing right by his client. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about him. And I know that his clients appreciate about him. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask him to talk about this idea of finding a business broker and working with a business broker and selling your business. So with that, Don, I'll turn things over to you.
All right. Thank you, Tom. That was very kind words. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed our relationship over the years, and the same thing, when I called you a few weeks ago, we hadn't talked for a while, and I was so happy to hear that you're keeping positive and starting this series to help people out through this COVID challenge. It's been a challenge for all business and people, and we got to look forward and to make the best of the situation and try to take advantage of the situation. There's many opportunities out there. We just need to find them and seek them and take advantage of it. So congratulations to all the business owners out there. If you're looking at selling or potentially selling your business, you've been in it for a while. It's a big step to not only sell the business, but it's very emotional because you probably started that business and it's your baby. You're watching over it and you're coddling it. And during this process of selling, you're going to be poked. You're going to be up and down. You're going to have potential buyers coming in. You're going to have brokers. Your broker, if you decide to go that way, is going to be poking holes in it, just trying to shore things up to make it a good sale. And that's one of the advantages of working with a broker is they have the expertise and the experience to ask the questions that bring value to a business and make it sellable. Right now, most business owners are over 60. 40% are over 65, according to Barlow Research. But so, we're many of the business owners are, it's time to move on.
And Don, I'm going to interrupt for a quick second.
Yeah.
So with those sellers that are over 65, 40%, I mean, that's a huge number.
I was shocked when I learned that.
Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised, I guess, because I'd have to imagine that just they're at that stage in life where they're kind of ready to retire or being done, or maybe their kids aren't involved in the business and they're ready for the next step. Is that what you typically see?
Yeah. The passing on of business to the children is a thing of the past. Children aren't interested in anymore. They know how hard it is to work a business on your own. They've seen it. They've taken other careers in the corporate world, and also a lot of times when you pass a business down, I've seen it where the next generation, because they didn't work it, doesn't work it as hard, and it tends to start to fall apart. So it's no longer the dream to pass it through generation to generation. That's really changed, fortunately or unfortunately, but it's probably a good thing for keep the peace in the family.
Right. Yeah. Right. Keep brothers and sisters talking to one another, children and parents talking to one another. I've seen my fair share of family businesses that just, it literally has torn the family apart for one reason or another, and especially as the transfer to that second generation. So yeah, that's interesting.
It's also this period of furloughs and layoffs, et cetera, has brought new interest in buyers. People that were happy with their corporate jobs are now like, oh, it's not so stable. They're looking potentially at controlling their own destiny, and I've seen a lot more inquiries lately on buying businesses. First few months of COVID, everything was stopped. It was nothing moving. Not a lot of interest in sales, selling a business or buying a business. But now it's, the realization set in, and people are looking to do some things, and there are some hot business. BizBuy sells hottest businesses for the first part of your online education, delivery service, and e-commerce businesses. I personally have seen big interest in insurance agency books. People kind of think it's kind of boring, but it's very steady. People need insurance no matter what the climate is out there. Landscaping businesses. COVID doesn't affect grass; it still grows. And people spending more time at home, they're looking at improving their property since they're going to be sitting there that long. Restoration services, there's still floods and hurricanes. So that happens no matter what. These are, the steady, a non-medical, at-home non-medical healthcare business is really growing fast right now, with the fact that baby boomers, 10,000 a day, are turning 75. And once you get over 75, there's a chance you're going to need to have some sort of care for a medical condition. And things like plumbing service. If you get a leaky pipe or a clogged drain or a broken faucet, that takes pretty high priority in your life. You're going to get that fixed. So, those things are really, maybe not the most glamorous things out there, but they're the steady things that people are looking at buying right now. They're looking for things that are not affected by the change in COVID
and Don, that's
on the road.
Don, that's interesting. I'm curious about the buyer, because it's interesting. You've seen an influx of buyers coming in. Like the first month or two, it kind of, probably really took a dive, but seeing that it's coming back, because we're seeing the same thing in franchising. We're seeing that the buyers out there, we saw the same thing. It kind of dropped a little bit for about a month, maybe 6 weeks. but things pop back up, and we're seeing the same kind of thing. People were laid off, or they're spending more time at home, and they're thinking, boy, maybe I should be doing my own thing. Maybe I should start my own business. And that leads people usually down three different tracks. They either think I'm going to do my own independent thing, or they say, well, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe I should buy a franchise because I'll maybe, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or the third option is they'll say, well, maybe I should, I'd rather buy something that's already going. I'd rather buy something that's already going and moving. And then they find you and they go through your process.
Yeah.
So,
before they find me, I think well, when they do find me or somebody else, the process up front is before even marketing the business, you need to do a evaluation of your business. And that's
that's a great idea. Sorry, I'm totally interjecting on your notes here,
Oh,
but
I
if you
appreciate it. This helps me. I'm a better interactor than.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I know that of you. So, as you go through this, could you talk through? And I know Andrew, you had messaged me about this, and for those folks that are tuning in here, just talk a little bit about that process. So, let's say I'm a business owner, and I don't know if there's a difference if you're a franchisee or if you're just maybe an independent business that's going through this. But could you walk through the steps that independent business should be thinking about, or that they're going to take as they start to list their business, and the things you look for as a business broker? So let's talk about listing first, and then talk about maybe some key points that you as a business broker look for in a success in helping a seller put their best foot forward to give them the maximum opportunity to find success or in selling their business.
I think the one thing the internet has done is it's made a much more educated buyer. They can look out there, look at many different opportunities, decide where they want to go, and then compare. Once they start narrowing things down, start comparing cash flow and business plans, etc. So you need to get that all in line before you even consider listing. You're starting with your books. A lot of individual businesses use the business as a piggy bank, so to speak, where they're paying personal costs out of it, and it's really not reflecting in the cash flow of the business. That's got to be identified. You're taking out X amount of dollars, $100,000, let's say, a year, but your books are only showing that you're profiting $10,000. And when you go to sell, that looks like $10,000. So you got to clean up those books. You got to start paying yourself out of the business instead of trying to bury it, which is a common thing in small business. Straighten the books out, and then get a real good look at where your cash flow is. The discretionary earnings, I'm going to pick up my list here of things that go into earnings on a business for a small business. Okay, you have the profit, salary, depreciation, amortization, interest expenses, equipment, vehicle lease expenses, fringe benefits, owner's insurance, owner's payroll, travel and meals and entertainment, owner's 401k, excess auto expense, personal telephone, personal fuel expense, charity contributions, and non-reoccurring such as equipment, customer, building damage, etc. So these are cash flow that you can add back in and become value. Your business is most often based on cash flow. It's on the seller's discretionary earnings. How much money will I take in if I take over that business? How much is that current owner taking in? And it's typically done as a multiple of that thing, setting the value of your business. So getting all that line is important.
So then, Don, you're saying, this is basically kind of the owner operator's income or the total owner benefit, the owner benefit. What's the full owner benefit that you're pulling out of your business? And then is there a multiple range that you usually see it multiplied by? Does it depend on your business? How does that happen?
It's by industry and size of business. Larger businesses over $5 million in sales will have a higher multiplier than businesses under that mark. And also depends on the industry. Once upon a time, restaurant industry, 15 years ago was a 3x multiple. Now you're looking at a 1 to 2 multiple, and that might even be lower now with depending on how affected the business was by this the regulations and the amount of seating, and have they been able to reconstruct and add delivery service, pickup service, outdoor seating, things like that. But you get into the medical and IT, those multiples are 3 to 5 times of the earnings. So if you show if you're showing a profit of $10,000, but you're really cash flowing 150, 5 times 10,000 is 50,000. 5 times 150,000 is your value of your business, 750,000. So that shows you the power of the multiple.
Yeah. And Don, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'd like for you to talk a little bit about this, is the emotional, you mentioned this, but it's the emotional tie-in to the value of the business. And I own a few businesses, and I know, when I've thought of, well, should I maybe sell one of these? Is it time? It is very emotional. And even in my perspective, I as a consultant, I see numbers, I look at this, I can advise clients on these matters all the time. And it's easy to be in the, on the sideline saying, hey, do this or don't overreact.
Yeah.
But I have yet to find a business owner that lists their business for sale that is not angry, frustrated, disappointed, overly emotional about the fact that their business is worth significantly less than they thought. And so I'd like for you to talk about that, because a lot of times as business owners, you're seeing the cash flow come into the checking account, and you might have a top line of $1 million, $500,000, $2 million, whatever the number is. And so, could you talk about that and kind of helping set some expectations for folks that are maybe thinking about that?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. A lot of times I'm the bearer of bad news when I say, you think your business is worth this. I'll ask what they think, and we'll go through these steps. Getting the discretionary earnings and doing the research of where the latest multiples are, and tell them where it is. And a lot of times they are disappointed by that, and that could change in an instant with as we see now in the COVID. And we also saw it back in 2008, 9, 10, and in those days where a huge collapse in the economy brought values way down in businesses.
So Don, to that point, one of the things that I'm thinking about, and I'm sure a lot of folks tuning in, is, okay, I've got this business, and guess what? 2017, 18, 19, those numbers were amazing. We were crushing it. And now, or even if you weren't crushing it, maybe you're just doing normal business. You're kind of at you're incremental. It's not really, it's pretty stable. It's pretty flat for your growth. But now COVID hits, and, maybe you take a little bit of a dip. Some took big dips, some took a little, some kind of stayed steady. We're seeing lots of clients I'm seeing dramatic increases or decreases depending on the business I'm talking to right now. It's dramatic one way or the other for most companies I'm speaking to. But talk to this idea. Now I have my business. I really wasn't thinking about selling, but now maybe I have to sell, or I don't want to rebuild again. I went through, I went through, the dot-com bust in September 11th and when the economy crashed. And I went through, the real estate bust and, and now we're at the pandemic situation. I don't want to do it again. So now my business is, how does that impact the valuation? What happens there? What do you suggest or advise for that?
Well, sometimes you have to cut your losses. You have to decide, do I want to take money that I've set aside for retirement, let's say, I'm at that point, do I want to break into that and rebuild this business? And do I have the energy to do that? Or do I take the current valuation and sell the business and walk away from it? Tough things to consider, but those are the real facts of it. It takes a lot of energy to rebuild a business right now, and a lot of insight, in terms of how do you change things. We've been doing this for the last 5 years this way, and it's been knocking it out of the park. Now all of a sudden I've got to really think about a different way of doing things to make this a viable business again. And I don't even know if my head can handle that. So you have to make the decision whether you want to retool or cut your losses and go. If it was good business for you, you have to take that into account as well. Did you raise your family with it? Did you put the kids through school? Did you, that has a value on its own. The freedom it gave you to set your own schedule. You have to consider that as well. It did many things for you in the past. Expecting it to be your retirement plan is really not a good exit strategy.
That's great advice, Don. I have not ever heard it presented in such a way about exiting out of the business or the use of the business really as a vehicle or a tool for what you said, maybe a work-life balance, maybe, like you said, putting your kids through school, for providing you just an income and giving you that flexibility so that you could do the things that you wanted to do. And now it's time to exit. And those things that you did with the business provided and afforded that to you, but that doesn't impact the value of the business as you're going through it. That is really well said. Very succinctly. So for those tuning in here, please, that is something that I've literally advised tens of thousands of small businesses over the last almost 17 years now, and very, very few that are at that stage of selling understand that. And it's the first time I've heard it presented and articulated in such a way. That's very well said, Don. Thank you. And to that point,
but that's part of the emotion too. When you sell, it's like,
look, as you're talking, this is reinforcing the value of a business broker. So talk about, what the things that you are going through as a business broker to help manage that emotion and representing the business and helping shop it around to potential buyers or fielding those calls. Talk through that.
Well, before we even look at marketing it, we have to get a lot of the background in line. Start out and mention cash flow. Look at all the contracts that are out there in your business. These are assets and liabilities. You have lease on equipment. What's the lease look like on your building, or do you own the building? Do you have any customer contracts? These are positives. Do you have any equipment purchases outstanding? Are there any loans outstanding? You need to get all that in line, and that all has to be clear. It has to be upfront, so it adds. Some of these, like you say, customer contracts add to the value of business, and some are take away from the value of the business. If you're in a bad lease, let's say, which happens, things changing out there right now. I think there's a lot of leases that seemed okay when the business was at that value, but now they're not very advantageous to the next owner. It's also a good idea to talk to your employees to see what their thoughts are. More than ever, they're not as emotionally involved as you, since they're not the owner. What are their thoughts in terms of making improvements, turning things to possibly turning things around, getting an outsider's view from an insider. There's a lot of things that they could bring up that that you maybe didn't think about that you could put into the business and add value. You know, people will buy a business that is has potential. You know, an older business that has potential, but that's all got to be put up there. They can't see it. You know, they don't know it. You know, you have to almost lay that plan out. Here's where I see it going, and they have to buy into that, and it's a selling point, and it's also a devaluation point, because you know, buying on the potential is not always advantageous for somebody looking to get into something. And then you know, focus on what's tried and true. Don't be getting off track with something that sounds like a great idea and it's flashing right now. And so, you know, stick with tried and true that you've made money with in the past. And then, you know, once we get to the point of marketing it, we're going to make sure that we don't have any red flags come up during the negotiation process, and make sure that, you know, I put some things down here: overdue accounts receivable, outdated employee policies, outstanding litigations, slow moving inventory, low margin customers or products. You know, these things need to be identified with your broker before getting to the point of a negotiation, and then all of a sudden you find out these red flags come up, and they'll find them during the period of when they're digging deep into the business and making the side of these come up. The big red flags come up, and they either scare the buyer away or run the value down. So you can identify these early and address them, clean them up if you can, or you make them potential buyers aware of them. It'll save a lot of time in the future. And then I think one of the things that that business owners they want to take value of the fact that, you know, if I sell my business, it's been doing this for a lot of years, but it's all because of what Don Krause has done. If I walk away from the business, what does that leave? My knowledge base goes, etc. So you have to set your business up for sale in a way that if you walk away, it's going to run without you. You have to have a management structure in place, an operation structure in place, that the business doesn't fall apart when you leave it. You know, you could do this by taking a week's vacation and see what happens to the business, you know. And if you're afraid to take that vacation, you know, you got to do some things to tighten that up. Or, you know, you got to put yourself in the buyer's shoes all the time. You know, would I want that business if, you know, Tom leaves it and it falls apart? I don't know as much about that business as Tom does, but if he's got a structure in place that if Tom leaves it, it's going to operate, and I could just come in as a manager versus the knowledge base, a lot more value to the business and a lot easier to sell.
Great. Well, and so how does this work to engage with a business broker? What's this process? What's the steps? What should you be looking for in a good business broker to help work with you on this?
Yeah. Well, I'm not in the business of listing. I'm in the business of selling. So I'm looking for businesses that that are sellable, and you need to look at a broker that looks at it that way. You know, it does no good to list a business and not be able to sell it. So a lot of that goes on. You have to really, you know, look at the broker. Are they asking the right questions? You know, the initial meeting. You know, I think using this, what we have right here, if they're not asking, you know, what the income is, you know, what the earnings are, and what the market looks like. If they're not asking these type of questions and digging into it, they're probably not going to be able to sell your business. And they don't have interest in it. So, it's really the first part of anything. And I would talk to a few. I wouldn't just go with the first one. And it's, if everything kind of seems the same, then you have to, go with a little bit of gut feel there. Who am I going to enjoy working with the best? Because there will be some tough times through the process.
Well, that's really interesting. So, don't take maybe take the first referral that comes your way. Kind of, just shop it around, find the right fit. Kind of like, maybe finding a, real estate agent, or maybe finding, I'm thinking about some, a CPA or whomever, a professional that's going to help you, talk to two or three and get a sense. And there will be, I'm sure, like you said, Don, a bunch of similarities. But I can tell you, I know that I've seen in the space that, there are franchise or business brokers, just like franchise brokers, that, they're in it to support their customers and their clients. And that is a leading preference or a leading indicator for them. And then there are the brokers that, that they care about their commission, period. And that's all they care about first and foremost. So that's, you just need to figure out what's important to you. It sounds like, as you're going through this, what kind of interaction and relationship are you expecting for this? And Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, the last data I saw is that selling an average business, or selling a business on average, takes a year or more than a year. Is that still pretty accurate?
Main Street business is 6 to 9 months. Bigger businesses, because there's more to dive into it, could take 2 years. Something that I didn't bring up, I wanted to mention this as well, is one of the things potentially looking at during this period is not only selling, but possibly merging. Looking at your competitors out there, or complementary businesses, and working out a deal where you could get together and put your powers together, so to speak, and get some value out of it that way.
And Don, is that something that a business broker, is that something you would do for your clients, to, reach out to those competitors and say, hey, I have not give away information that would disclose it, but say, I have a client that's maybe interested in doing this. Do you have an interest? Is that kind of how you do it?
Yeah, it's not as popular as it was, but in preparing for today, it really crossed my mind that it probably should be mentioned, just from the standpoint of another option, and keeping your business going. Putting two businesses together. You could also streamline some of the costs. Your accounting costs, your sales costs, your lease costs, etc. It make things a lot more profitable, and it could be part of your exit strategy for a couple of years from now, after that merger, is to sell out, or have somebody buy you out. It's definitely it's a tricky course to go through. You have to really dig through and make sure you can trust who you're working with. You have to do a lot of digging into backgrounds, etc. But it's definitely an option, I think, now that we have this. Where's the future going in some of this business? And if you're older, do you have the energy to retool it, or maybe I should join forces with a competitor or somebody in a complementary business? Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thought, and I think really enhances the value of a business broker, to be that independent third party that can keep things confidential, kind of shop it around without fear of maybe letting your staff know, because I know business owners are always worried, I don't want to scare away my staff because, we might not sell tomorrow. It might be that 6 months or 9 months down the road. And I don't want to scare away our customers for them to think, oh, no, they're going out of business. I want to stop working with them.
Yeah, which brings up another point. I do not market businesses with their name on them, with their exact location on them. I do not talk to any potential buyers until they sign a non-disclosure agreement. There's too many, in the word getting out that your business for sale, you can lose customers and you can lose employees, and it's not good for the seller or the potential buyer. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I see a lot of businesses get listed, with their full names in them. And I think that's too risky.
Yeah. Well, Don, I'd like to go into some Q&A here. Francisco, hang on the line here. I know you just sent a note about networking. So Don, before we go to Q&A, real quick, tell folks how they can get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you specifically with questions or to talk to you about supporting maybe some of their own clients or just supporting them through this process. How can they reach you?
Okay. Well, my email is Don Krause at strategicbusinessbrokerage.com. And that's also my website. And my phone number is 630-235-6303. Sometimes it's easiest just to talk on the phone to see what people are thinking, and you could get a lot more done that way versus emailing back and forth. In a 15-minute phone call, you can settle a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we just had a question come in. Thank you. This is a great question. It says, once the NDA is signed, what should the buyer reasonably expect to receive in the way of financial information? So do you know what that, or is he referring to, do you know what that means, John?
Yeah. They're supposed, on the NDA, we ask them to disclose their financial worth, what they have in cash and what they have in an asset value.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we don't have bank information, et cetera, and that comes a little bit later when we really find out if they're interested in the business and we start going through the process. Then you can dig deeper into their financials. But initially, it's more trusting them that they're filling out the NDA honestly. But that's on the NDA is, cash assets and total assets.
Okay. So, Andrew, did that answer the question there? I want to make sure. Okay, this question came in here. It says, how do you deal with the sellers that don't show their cash earnings in the tax returns?
That's most buyers, and the buyers have to be educated on that. That's where the discretionary earnings sheet comes in, where you put that back into a lot of P&Ls, don't show profit at the bottom, but there are salaries in there and there are other earnings in there. Buyers have to be educated on that, and most of them do know that the real cash flow is in the total discretionary earnings. Things get the tax reports is one of the things a lot of business owners try to do is lower their tax bills, etc. and legally, and
mm-hmm. So then do you will the seller is for that discretionary earnings report, is that something then you work out with the seller? If you're representing the seller, that you'll have them prepare that, you'll prepare that in conjunction with them? Is that something you do, Don?
I do not do it. From a legal standpoint, I cannot put that together.
Okay.
Because that would be entering my opinion. It would be best it's done by a CPA.
Okay. But
Whoever
you
they're
but
working
but
with.
I guess I should rephrase. You advise them and the seller on how to do that,
Right.
you know, and help point out and say, hey, here, look. They say, well, I only showed a profit of, like the numbers you were saying. I only showed a profit of 10 grand, but I made $100,000. You say, well, you know, look at this discretionary. Look at this line item in your P&L, and this one and this one. You know, these things need to be pointed out, and you know, we can and work with your CPA. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's best that that the business owner has their accounting firm or whatever do that, because that gets them out of the loop as well. Because it's all gonna, when disclosure comes about, it's all gonna come open anyway. They'll start digging into books, looking at bank statements, etc.
Yep.
It'll be there.
So another question that said, have you ever seen an offer from the buyer before receiving financial statements? Is that common? Does it happen at all?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a letter of intent. Uh, those come in. It's really not a legal document, but it shows that they're serious, and it typically has a deposit down on it. And then from there is when you start digging deeper into the financials of it. Are they capable of paying for that business or securing a loan? Then you start digging into it deeper. You got to make sure that there's an interest or whatever. You can't be. You got to put your efforts into where the biggest potential for sales are, and put your time into narrowing it down. I'll get a lot of inquiries, but you really have to go through them and see who's really the serious buyers, and you start working on it pretty quick.
And there's another question that came in from Francisco here. Great question. He said, and he wants to network, by the way. So looks like he's involved in the South Florida market. And he said a lot of sellers don't have the financial statements ready for show. What do you do in those scenarios? I know you talked a little bit about that early on, but how do you take that small business that maybe their books were a mess, or they don't really even have anything? They just have tax returns that are just, it's not really good financial, like a profit and loss might be.
Yeah. I call them shoebox businesses. I steer away from them. I give them advice to get their books together. You can always stitch together from bank statements and receipts, etc. Working with an accountant to get that done. It's something that has to get done, because your business has no value otherwise, and it can't be justified to the seller.
Right. That makes
unless
sense.
somebody. Car wash business was really big because it was a big cash business.
Mm-hmm.
The self-serve, all the quarters going in, and that it was a very strange business, but very cash flow heavy business.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of buyers are that way. They don't show it, but they talk about it and they know it was there. Those things become difficult in the buyer's mind to justify it. It's finding those buyers that understand that, not easy.
Got it. And Don, another question here. This is a good one. It talks about the attorney fee that's drafting the contract, the sale agreement. And the question is, do you see the attorney fees? Is the attorney fee proportional or rise and fall with the value of the business? How have you seen attorney fees typically work in that regard?
It's more in the difficulty of the sale. A simple asset sale, you're looking at $1,000 to $2,000 attorney fee. And both sides, the buyer and the seller, should have attorneys. But when you get into more of a difficult sale where you have inventory, et cetera, then your attorney fees will go up. It's not structured on value, though. It's structured on complex how complex is the sale? You know, how many amendments have to be added to that document?
Got it. And so then, so the let's see. Okay, so the question was asking about broker fees, just for kind of standard commissions. He was saying that he sees down in the South Florida market that a standard commission may be around 10%. And he sees that business brokers are underrated a lot of times, or and wondering if you maybe see that as well. And Don's based in the Chicago area, by the way. We should have mentioned that early on. But what do you typically see in both those areas?
Well, industry standard is 10%, and sometimes that's negotiated. If I'm working with somebody who has multiple businesses, et cetera, then you consider often a reduced rate. But 10% is an industry standard. Business brokerage, there were a lot of shysters in this business 20 years ago. A lot of non-support in it, and I think that's why you got a black eye. You got to live through that, and that's why we're underrated, I guess, because there were some bad people out there. And, I think that's cleaned up mostly. But not everybody.
There's a yeah, it's a self-inflicted wound, right? Unfortunately, enough bad apples that were kind of doing doing things that just were negative or causing bringing attention to the field for the wrong reasons, and now everybody suffers.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, franchising had the same issues. There were some bad franchises out there that took advantage of people and left them high and dry. So I still see people reeling from that, especially older people that recognize it. I think the younger buyers today, they didn't know about that, and with the FTDs involved now, I think it's being more regulated. It's a lot cleaner for people now, and working with companies like you and understand it. And I represent franchises. Well, I sell franchises, new franchises. And by the way, if you have a franchise and you're looking to sell it, I would work with a broker on that as well. A lot of the franchise will offer their team, but it's a guy at the national headquarters who's marketing it for you. You're probably better off having somebody local working harder for you.
Right.
We just had I didn't know about it till the sign was down, but a 30-year-old Subway in our town here just closed. And I know the owner of the building, and he called up, the owner of the building called up Subway. Subway said, well, we're not interested in it. The owner just shut down and walked away from him when the COVID hit. He had value there. You should have called me. I think, but it is what it is, We have to live with that and concentrate on the good areas.
Yeah, and I think I think one of the values of a business broker, and you may have said this and I just missed it, but is you're going to have your own Rolodex of contacts as well. So you're certainly looking for new buyers, but when you've been doing it for a while, in 10 years, you're going to have buyers come back to you that say, hey, I'm ready to sell this one, or I'm ready to buy another. And, what do you got, Don? What's in your portfolio? So talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and also, in the portfolio of my database of names, thousands of people that have inquired over the years. Doesn't mean they're going to buy now. At that time, 5 years ago, well, I'm kind of thinking about it, but things are going okay. Well, those people might be interested now. They lost their job. They frustrated with what's going on. might be time for them to buy. So it's definitely worth reaching out to some of these people, and I know what industries they were interested in at the time, what they were inquiring about. So, we don't have to bother them all. If they were looking for food, we're not going to send them a plumbing business, and
Sure.
vice versa.
Sure. Another question came in here. Any experience when dealing with private equity that's looking to buy? Have you had any experience in that?
Frustrating. It sounds good, but when it comes down to it, they're looking to get something for nothing mostly.
Yeah. That's been my experience as well. When I get the call from a private equity firm, I get Francisco is laughing on the chat box here as well. And look, I can tell you, even from my vantage point, occasionally I'll get a call from investment groups or private equity, and they say, hey, what do you got in your portfolio? And if they can't steal it, they're generally, not gonna buy into it. They're looking for a real killer deal.
If it seems too good to be true, probably is.
Yeah.
Although there are some good firms out there that will look at it and work on it. I shouldn't throw it at the whole industry, but I get at least one a day email, looking at what do you got for me in this range, and what they're looking for typically is like, who would be selling it? It's
right. Yeah.
I'm looking for EBITDA of $1 million, and
Yeah. Well, look, I had a client that really interesting. She was able to sell. She actually sold. She built a franchise system, grew it, sold it, and to a private equity group, and they've done a really nice job with it. And this private equity group has done a great job. They really have kind of a core focus, and they specialize in this little niche area that she was running her business in. They've done a really nice job, and it seems like they're going to kind of keep some of those core values alive that a small business embodies. So I think there, to your point, Don, there are good ones out there that are in it where they're looking for maybe, and I think, part of the difference is this a buy and hold firm as you're thinking about it? If it's a buy and hold PE group, chances are you're going to get a better offer. They're going to be looking for a little bit of a better deal. They're probably really going to actually make a deal versus a flipper that's going to come in and they're going to buy it and flip it 3 to 5 years from now. They're going to try to grow it exponentially, strip the expenses down, beef the profit up, and try to get a flip 3 to 5 years with a big upside return. So that may be a good way to explain that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're going to make an investment, so they want to have as little upfront investment as possible. So, and they're willing to beef it up, like you said, get the sales up, et cetera, and then flip it down the road. So the less they can pay for it, the better off they are. They feel,
Yeah.
And those firms are very legal and accountant oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very tedious to work with from that standpoint, from a seller standpoint. You talk about a discovery process. That is really that's really a tough one.
Yeah.
Really,
and that emphasizes your point previously too, that if your books aren't in order, you don't even have a shot. There's no chance. They're not even going to glance. They're not even going to think twice about it. You're not even in the equation if you can't provide even just basic information. So, well, that's great. Well, Don, while we have you, anyone who's tuning in, any final questions while we have Don? Let's see. How about using leverage for people trying to acquire funds to buy the business, like a loan or anything like that? Any feedback on that, Don?
Money's available right now, and it's pretty inexpensive. Matter of fact, there's trying to think what the name of it was. There was a government program that came out in April for doing funding on on cash flow analysis by the banks where the government is backing up. I have to find the name of that funding. SBA is pre-approved on some franchises, and it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it makes it easier. Those people online don't. SBA is not a loaning service, but it's an insurance service for the bank. That if they approve of your loan, the SBA will back you up if you default. Will back the bank up if you default. I get sometimes I get I work with some of the banks locally, so I could steer somebody to somebody I know that will work with them who's professional and let them know right away whether they can get money or not. It's good to find out early.
Great. Well, Don, this has been great. I really appreciate your time here as we close out. Any parting words for our guests as we bring this to a close today?
Well, one of the things just that a brokerage also offers and you talk about the roller coaster of emotions. When you get to negotiations, I take the offers in and bring them to the seller, and I go back to the buyer with the response. You're not doing that. You're not having that crash. I do the crash, and I do the delivery of the bad news, good news, and talk through that's a ridiculous offer. I'm not even going to bring it to them, but tell me what your thoughts are and why you think it is there. You learn a lot, So that's one of the things that a broker helps with, and during the due diligence review, help them pull that together. Once again, I can't do it, but I could guide you through the process and try to take the emotion out of it, because it does get emotional.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Francisco said sellers are very sensitive with the selling price and valuation. Yeah, that's exactly right. And having that third party, whether you are the seller or the buyer, whomever, to have that third party and a business broker to be there to work with you. It's kind of like when you need a surgeon, you don't need the surgeon to prep you. In a lot of cases, they've got nurses and people that are going to do that. But when it comes time to cut, you want that knife in the hand of a surgeon, an experienced surgeon. And I think that the same can be said here. When you're at the decision deal-making table, you want to have a business broker with some experience that can guide you and help you through this. I think there's a lot of value to that, because they don't have that emotion. They don't have that hang up that they can deflect and defray and present the news back to you in a way that's not going to ruffle your feathers and kill the deal. Because the emotion will kill the deal. It will destroy it. And it might be you, by the way, seller that's tuning in. It might be you, Mrs. Buyer, that's tuning in. It could be you that's getting overly emotional in going through that. And so having the broker represent helps keep that separated.
Yeah, and I've run through a lot of different things. I had a sale that was just about to get done, and it was a husband-wife team tutoring company, and she was diagnosed with cancer, and he just couldn't face it and deal with it, so he took it off the market. I mean, we had an offer on the table. We were getting to the point of doing the diligence, and emotionally he couldn't handle it, so he took the company off. So very frustrating, but those are the things that can happen. And then also, other people's opinion kills a lot of things too. Makes it rough, especially from the seller or the buyer. They'll go ask somebody else about what do they think about this.
Right.
They've never owned a business before, or
right.
I'm working with a potential listing right now, and asked her, she had an idea of the value. And well, my CPA said it's should sell for somewhere either $1 million or $1.5 million. I'm like, well, that's pretty big range there. I think we need to get down to a better idea on what the actual earnings are. So that opinion there, that's a big swing, that $500,000 swing, and he never sold a business in his life. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been great, Don. I really appreciate your time and your advice, suggestions, wisdom, and nuggets of knowledge you've been able to share. We will get this posted up for a replay. We're currently transitioning our replay replay system, I should say, on our website. But we will have this up on a replay so that anyone who tunes in or wants to watch again, and we will reshare this and post it. So thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend. And again, Don Krause, thank you for being here with Strategic Business Brokerage. We really, really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate the opportunity and cherish our relationship, both personally and from a business standpoint. I look forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise, Don, I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.